What is the best full suspension bike under 3K? Whether you're a climber, descender, or just an all-rounder looking for something stable and fun to ride, Bikes Online have 3 awesome value options that we're going to look into. The Polygon Siskiu D7, there's the Rift Zone 2, and the Polygon Siskiu T7. All 3 bikes are fairly evenly spec'd with wide-range Shimano Dior drivetrains, trustworthy suspension coming from RockShox in the form of 120 to 140mm travel, and dropper posts for when the trails get steeper. I sat down with Brad and Ross to get their thoughts on the bike. What was your priority bike? What did you think did the most for you, Ross?
Look, initially I thought it was going to be the Siskiu T7. Typically I tend to ride longer trail bikes, a bit more focused on the descents. So I kind of want a bike that I can get to the top without too much trouble. And then I want a bike that's really capable on those descents.
Ooh, okay. For me, I'm known as a bit of an uphill bandit. I'm not built like one, admittedly, but that's
Loves
right.
the suffering.
I love the suffering, right? Yeah, that's been well documented in the past. So I was looking for something ergonomically that fitted and felt like it really fitted me nicely, and it felt efficient going up the hills. Like that was a big priority for me. Like all 3 of them on paper should go downhill pretty well, is the truth.
Yeah, I'd have to admit, when I jumped on the Rift Zone, I was actually surprised at just how capable at descending it was, and for me, even kind of how poppy and playful it was for sure.
Even though it had 29-inch wheels.
Exactly.
And the Siskiu's 27.
Correct, yeah.
True. It was very lively. Like you could flick about, you could change lines, you could see a little rock or a log and just pop off it and
Could be something to do with the suspension. I know the Siskiu is pretty linear in the way it goes through its stroke, so maybe that had something to do with the Rift Zone. That you'd feel that. For me, I'm pretty keen on riding kind of an undersized bike on stuff that's too difficult, and then getting close to my limits or over them. So I would go for the D7. I'd prefer something a bit more lively and...
It's where your preference lies.
Yeah. Sometimes scary, but yeah, D7 would be where I'm at.
Yeah, look, I think I found the T7 on trails that are a bit more wide open, where the speed's higher. There's a little bit more stability over the Rift Zone, and so I think if you've got a set of trails where you've got longer climbs and then a bigger descent, or you're more inclined to maybe head into the bike park, I'd say the T7 would be my preference to take on that kind of terrain.
So the T7, like the one we specifically had on test, was a 27.5. It runs quite a wide rim and quite a voluminous tyre.
2.8s?
I think it was,
Big
wasn't it? Yeah, they were really big. And yeah, you did notice, like, we're riding a really rocky terrain of the local northern beaches, and that voluminous tyre, you really could just send it down through the rock gardens, and you really didn't have to worry. Like, you did feel quite insulated from the terrain.
Don't bother with line choice.
Oh no, you did. Otherwise, you could end up in the weeds. Oh. Nobody wants that, right? But that being said, though, yeah, when you did push it hard, you definitely felt quite insulated by it. Like, it was nice. It was like a very secure feeling.
For me, I like something small that maybe I'd change into something else, but with a small rear end. Brad's keen on the Rift Zone for its more aggressive rear stroke. Ross is probably keen on something with a longer, slower, linear shock for going a bit quicker.
Definitely.
True. I definitely like the D7 head angle, like the really tight trails that are on. You just notice that change of direction. There's a little bit more weight on your front tyre. It's a little bit more planted. For sure. Steeper roll-ins, again, both the Rift Zone and the Siskiu. Again, you can stay a little bit more central on the bike when you're going down something steep, and you don't feel like you've got to slam yourself entirely back, like on every opportunity. Like, you've got a little bit greater window of kind of up your sleeve if something goes a bit pear-shaped, I suppose.
Well, the D7's much steeper, so almost a full degree where the front wheel is kind of closer and more underneath your bars, which if you've got lots of corners that are close together, is probably going to be better. Yeah. Quicker handling, faster response out of your front end. Sure. Whereas if you've got 3 corners that are a bit further apart, more spread out, you'd be carrying more speed, then you'd be happy with something a bit slacker to be a bit more forgiving.
Interestingly, the Rift Zone's got a slightly slacker head angle at 65. The T7's 65.6 from memory. But I think the difference between those two is it's more due to the wheelbase of the bike. So the T7 has slightly longer chainstays.
Because it's a 27.5.
And yeah, it's a 27.5. So again, that gives you a little bit more stability at the higher speed, whereas the shorter chainstays and shorter wheelbase of the Rift Zone just allowed you to kind of really pivot quickly between tight corners.
Reach is where you go, if you go straight up from your bottom bracket and then you measure forwards to where the end of the stem is. That's kind of how most modern mountain bikes are measured in size at the moment. In the past, it might have been the length of your seat tube or horizontal top tube, but because all the angles have gone all over the place, reach is a pretty good number. And the D7 or the D series is quite a bit shorter. It's almost an inch, which makes a big difference. And that'd be where you get that stability from, for sure.
What about climbing differences? So I think I kind of noticed with the T7, I was more inclined just to sit down and probably spin. Whereas the other two bikes, I think there was a little bit more encouragement to probably get out of the saddle and crank up hills a little bit quicker.
Do you think you'd be faster though? Do you think a T7, if you had the same effort, one where you're sitting down, one where you're standing up a bit, would you be quicker sitting down?
It'd be pretty close, I would think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I did notice, like you mentioned before, Pete, like the shorter reach, yeah, compared to the Marin. I definitely noticed climbing, particularly out of the saddle, like when you're going something steep, you're leaning forward. I did notice the bars pretty close, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that long. So the T set or the T series is kind of quite progressive in the current market. So when it came out a few years ago, it was really long, and now everything is kind of similar, but it is long. Whereas the D series is more of a traditional cross-country, kind of be a trail bike kind of thing. So that length would definitely be there. I noticed I like the D7 because where we are, the climbs are really short,
brutal,
technical, with a lot of changing in direction. And I found with the D7, you can lift up the front end and move it around. Whereas with a T series, it's quite a bit longer away from you, and it's a bit harder to pivot through the middle of the bike. You've kind of just got to pedal it through.
Yeah.
So different styles of climbing, and that's where you'd have a D series. For me, on the more technical stuff here.
Yeah, I'm definitely Siskiu D7 or the Rift Zone tend to suit, I suppose, the locality and the terrain here and my riding style, realistically. That's, and I reckon the T7, again, maybe somebody a little younger that gets a little bit more air, that's maybe a little bit more aggressive a rider than I am.
Just like probably. Ross, a young whippersnapper.
That's him, yeah, right there on the left, absolutely. Potentially a slightly better fit. But big picture, like again, I've been in mountain biking.
Get all three.
Get all three, right? Just like it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, right? So just run with it. But again, big picture, right? $3,000 bikes or thereabouts. It just blew me away how much you actually get for your money. You go back 15, 20 years and you'll be paying 3 times that to get even half of this. It's impressive. So in summary, I think the type of bike you buy is very much going to be a focus of the terrain that you live in and just the preferences you've got, what you get out of your riding and what you enjoy.
For me, I'm going for the D7. Riding characteristics, a bit more agile, a bit aggressive, good for climbing. That'd be my bike.
Yeah. Look, for me, I'd be going the T7. So I'm prepared to sacrifice a little on the climbs just to get that edge over rougher terrain, higher speed descents, a bit more capable to push things a little further and faster.
The Rift Zone, the cockpit and the ergonomics therein definitely suited me better. It gave a lot better feel, and that was probably why it takes the win for me. Thanks everybody for joining us here today at the Bike Shed for our discussion on 3K dualies and under, what makes them tick.